We're now live, Chair.
Thank you, Sally. Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Charnwood Waste Management Scrutiny Panel. I'd like to make an announcement before we begin the meeting. This virtual meeting is being live streamed. It will also be recorded and the recording subsequently made available via the Council's website. In addition, under the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014, other people may film, record, tweet or blog from this meeting. The use of any such images or recordings is not under the Council's control. Please note that members of the public viewing the meeting via the live stream can only see the person who is speaking. Also, that it takes a second or so for Zoom to switch view to that person once they begin. Participants should please ensure that their microphone is muted when they are not speaking. Thank you. So can I ask each member of the panel to confirm verbally that they're present and that they can see and hear the proceedings? So Councillor Baldrin, please.
Thank you, Chair. I am present and I can hear and see the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Forrest. Okay, I'll come back to you, Councillor Forrest. Councillor Howe?
Present and can see and hear the meeting, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Needham?
Thank you, Chair. I'm present and I can see and hear.
Thank you. Councillor Forrest, are you able to unmute? Okay, I'll check with officers and other attendees and come back to you if that's okay, Councillor Forrest. So we also have a number of officers and other attendees at the meeting. Can I ask them also to confirm verbally that they are present and that they can see and hear the proceedings? So we have Matt Bradford, the Head of Cleansing and Open Spaces for Charnwood.
Thank you, Chair. I can see and hear proceedings.
Thank you, Matt. I think we have Councillor Lee Harper-Davies, Cabinet Lead Member for Community Support.
Good evening all, I can see and hear, Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. We also have Jenny Ardley, representing Loughborough University.
I'm here and can see and hear you.
Thank you. We have Sally Watson from Democratic Services.
Thank you, Chair, I can hear and see the meeting.
Thank you, Sally. And Laura Strong, also from Democratic Services.
Thank you, Chair, I can see and hear the meeting.
Thank you, Laura. Councillor Forrest.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm that I can both see and hear the proceedings of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Forrest. Obviously, I can also see and hear the proceedings. Moving on then to item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Ted Parton, I believe, and that is all. Okay, so item 2, disclosures of pecuniary interests and other registrable and non-registrable interests. Does anybody have any of those to declare? Can see nobody indicating that they do. So let's move on to item 3, which is declarations of the party whip. Does anybody have any of those to declare? All councillors are indicating that they do not. Item 4 is minutes of the previous meeting, which occurred on the 11th of May. Is everyone happy to approve the minutes of that meeting? I appreciate that many of those present weren't actually present at that meeting. Yes? Okay, thank you. Item 5 then is questions under Scrutiny Committee Procedure 11.16, and no questions have been submitted. So that brings us on already to item 6 on the agenda, which is identifying barriers to recycling, obviously, in Charnwood and looking at ways to overcome them. And at this point, I would like to ask Jenny Ardley from Loughborough University to come in and present her information on the university and their role in recycling in the borough. Jenny?
Hi. So yeah, it's not surprising coming from an education institution that it's all about education for us. We have I've worked with Nikki Gibson since January this year, much more closely than in previous years. And for us, it's just repeated education with an ever-changing section of students, because obviously they move out every year and then move back into the town. So for us, it's just increasing our sustainability agenda, education, and informing them. They come from all over the country and all over the world, so it's informing them of what Charnwood protocol is with recycling and rubbish. I haven't got it yet, but within a couple of weeks there'll be a report about our end of year clear out, which I'm quite happy if the membership of this panel would like to receive a copy, which will detail how we tried to increase recycling, charity donation, and reducing landfill this year, because it's a problem that is not ever going to be solved, but it's a problem that needs working at every single year. And we've gone from multi-agency partnership approach to all do what we can in terms of educating the students in terms of how to clear out successfully, whilst not stepping on the toes of John Borough Council, who are obviously the statutory authority when it comes to rubbish and littering. But Nikki and I have worked really closely together this year, so that if people are causing problems, that we have a joined up approach to educate them very rapidly, and to use more stringent methods if punishment is needed. But it's much more on the agenda now, to try and work towards a more sustainability approach to those living in town.
Thank you, Jenny. I think the panel would welcome your report on this year's clear out being made available. Do you know when that's going to be ready?
So we worked very closely with the air ambulance this year. I don't know if people were aware of that, and we're meeting up on Monday to get the facts and figures of how much was collected. We've got the figures from March, which showed that over £2,000 was raised for charity on collections from the students for that. But I want a yearly. I need the figures for June's, and I want a yearly total as well. I can give you some, when I put it together, I can give you some impact statements we had from people like the YMCA and the food bank who received items from students. And we found the impact report from the YMCA particularly heartening, and there was a large impact from what the students donated and how that helped our service users, their service users. So I would hope definitely by the end of August. I can get that to you. I just need the facts and figures from the air ambulance.
Okay, because we're actually nearing completion of.
I know. When would you like it? And I'll aim for that.
Well, we'd like it as soon as possible.
Tomorrow. as soon as I've met with the air ambulance, I shall make it a real priority to get it to you as quickly as I possibly can.
Thank you. That would be much appreciated. Do you think you could just give us a really quick overview of what the clear out looked like this year, in terms of what you did this year that perhaps was different to what's been done in previous years?
Absolutely. And it's a shame that Nikki or Sarah Ritchie aren't here, really, because I can go to a certain level, but obviously they're the statutory partners, so they have responsibility for a certain bit of it that I just can't do, because obviously the university hasn't got a bin lorry, so that's one of our major things that we can't do the big bit. So it was a lot of publicity, lots of education. We did a tester in March to see how practical the logistics of collecting different things off different people was, and that was quite challenging, very rewarding, but also very time consuming. So to give you an example, we were collecting lots of different items for lots of different people. So we were collecting toiletries for the YMCA in Leicester. for their service users. We were collecting bras for a breast cancer charity who distribute that in England, but also use it to raise money for breast cancer charities in the UK. But they send the actual physical bras to a place in Africa where it sounds bizarre, but it actually works. Wearing underwear is a symbol of wealth and shows that there is a reduction in assault on women if they are wearing correct underwear. So that's a really specific thing that really helps people directly. So we collected those for that charity. Any food, non-perishable items we took to all the local food banks. So I worked with Verity Graham so that she received the items for the John Storer House set up. I'm trying to think what else we collected. Anything brand new which could be passed on, the air ambulance took, and they have a multiple of things. They have an eBay shop and an Amazon shop, but also their physical shops, and they took anything that was new and usable for those, and that's where the £1,500 came from at Easter. Any sporting equipment we took to local schools. Sanitary products went to the food bank. Basically, I said I would take anything that was not, needing to be put in a back bin. Basically, I would take anything. We would sort it out as a team and we'd distribute it. And I wanted to be very specific that I would start with local people first, because I wanted it to have a direct positive impact on the locality where the students live. Because I'm very strong, that they live in the community, and the items need to go back straight into that community. But when it became items that we couldn't really home, that's when the air ambulance took it and they put the money. In the summer, the thing was a lot more simple. So the landlords all got together. Well, I got the landlords all together and we arranged it so that landlords would have air ambulance bags for people who moved out early. They would collect items that they then passed to me that I passed to air ambulance. But the big push was on the 27th and 28th of June, where the week before our air ambulance delivered to every student property in the town. There's 8,500 people who live in town that are students, and each property received an air ambulance bag. And then teams of us went round on the Tuesday. It was in the Store Road, Burley Road area, making sure that was being delivered ready for the air ambulance. And on the the other day, I think it was the 29th, was Kingfisher. So we divided up the two areas and put a massive lot of basically bodies on the streets, knocking on doors and making sure people were donating anything that could be saved and recycled was, and not put into landfill. The landlords really, really helped with this. And so one landlord in particular, Dominic Parr, who owns most of Granville Street and Chestnut Street, he physically put boxes outside each one of his properties and said, here's a list of things you can put in it. And he took those to food banks and the same, and he gave some of the stuff to me to pass on to our ambulance. The problem that occurred that we've never had before, I've been doing this for 7 years and I've never seen it before, is the date that was chosen to do the extra bin lorry pickup. That didn't happen until the 4th of July. That was a decision made not by myself. So that was out of my hands. But the problem we have is finalist students finish their exams and usually depart Loughborough in the middle of May. So there's a real lag between the middle of May and the end, when contracts change over for the students, which is the last working day in June. So 30th of June is when the student housing contracts change over. Now that's a really long time between the 30th of June until the 4th of May for an extra bin lorry pickup. And what we had this time was, we think it was street homeless, went along a lot of the student streets and ripped open the bags to try and find items left behind. Nikki Gibson and I witnessed this firsthand because we don't want to use the word caught. We found someone doing it and, asked them if they needed help or whatever. And they were saying they were looking through the bags for items that they could use. And lots of students filmed the same occurrence happening because sometimes it was in the middle of the night and they were a bit disturbed by the fact that there was someone outside ripping. There was one girl in particular who was very frightened because there was a man with a torch. They came quite prepared. It was almost like that's what they were planning to do. Came with a torch and ripped open all the bags. The problem that caused was that happened on the Monday, and the extra bin collection wasn't for another 7 days. So then you've got a problem of a lot of rubbish being strewn up and down the streets, which caused a knock-on effect. If the air ambulance bags were ripped open, the air ambulance couldn't collect those. That rubbish was contaminated, and it was a real problem that we've literally not had before. And I am all ears if anybody's got a way that we can work together to solve this, because we don't quite know what to do. Choosing the date for the collection is really key, so that rubbish is not left for too long uncollected. Because so for example, Chestnut Street, I met a landlord who was he was very tired, but he was literally in tears, because the night before he said this street was, you know, really well done. Everything was in black bin liners that were sealed. The green bins had the correct waste in. I left everything as neat as it could be. The ambulance and stuff, and we went back at midday the next day, and it was absolute carnage. Every single bag was ripped open, and it was down the street. And once you see that, then other people were dumping stuff. It was really difficult, because we'd all worked really, really hard this year, and we didn't anticipate that problem, that everything would be ripped open. Obviously, sometimes you get animals who rip open food waste and stuff, but we've never had this problem before. So I'll stop talking, because I can see that Miss Bradford has his hand up.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, actually, we were discussing this before the meeting started, because a couple of us actually went down and had a look.
It was awful.
And did see this, and I've spoken to some residents who've confirmed what you've said, as have officers in that team on the council. Matt, do you want to come in at this point?
Yeah, just to say, Jenny, I work with Sarah Ritchie and Nikki Gibson. I don't think we've met before. Programming the sort of clear up day is always a bit of a tricky scenario. It's really,
lottery, literally, isn't it? Which day you pick?
Some students leave earlier than others, and we try and get it as close to the end of term as possible. So the following weekend or Monday, when we have the resources available, we can't really do it any other day apart from a weekend or a Monday, because our resources are committed to their normal routine work. So it is a tricky one, and one that we've tried different things in the past, doing it sort of a week or two earlier, and then probably this one was a little bit later than we'd normally do. We can only do it once, so that's the message really. We can try different things. We can bring it forward, and we can delay it, but we can only do it once. So we don't really have an option of doing multiple clear up days. It's something that we can only facilitate once. And as I say, the practice, as far as I'm aware, has normally been to do it straight after the term ends, as soon as possible. I appreciate that some people in their final year will leave earlier than that, and some people's courses might finish earlier, but that's how we organise that.
Matt, can we try, so this year we've done it really late. Next year, can we try doing it earlier? And I think, sadly, we're going to have a few years of mucking about, and the pattern of student behaviour has changed totally and utterly since COVID. We've seen real dramatic shifts in how people use their property. People who used to stay over the summer just don't. It's a constant. It's shifting sands all the time. But next year, could we trial it earlier? I think trial and error is going to be the way. But can we trial it earlier next year to see if we can eliminate the problem of it being kind of the bags being ripped open?
Yeah, I'm happy to trial things. What my main concern really is that. Bringing it too far forward, really. So if there's a property and all of the occupants are going home, and we do the waste clear up before they've left, there's no one in the property to present their bin when they when they leave. So theoretically, we could do the clear up. Some properties are still occupied, and then the students leave. That waste in their bin could sit there all summer, really, before the new occupiers take up their residency at the student accommodation. So bringing it sort of forward in advance at the end of term, I think is a difficult one, and something that we have to discuss. But I'm happy to try different things.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't want to either hijack this meeting or take up people's time too much, but I wonder about whether we could meet outside and meet with the landlords, because what I'm thinking that we could do, because I got cooperation from the landlords, and I couldn't fault them this year, to be honest. They were brilliant. Is that if they know when their students are leaving early, because they have to get the final inspection signed off. So what I did with them, people who were leaving early, is the landlords were making arrangements for that, so we could get the landlords to help dispose of the rubbish. And one thing I think of that we tried to get, and I think we need to work harder to get it, because it would solve a problem. In the previous one of the latter meetings that we had, where we were trying to solve this ever present problem of the right date, is the landlords asked if for the weekend of handover, which is always on the 30th, that is always the 30th of June, the 1st of July is when people move out and in, is they asked if they could have one permit for each landlord agency for the tip, because they said what we would do is we are quite happy to take the rubbish ourselves to the tip, which would have solved a lot of the problems, but that was rejected. Could we look at, and I know it's Leicestershire County Council, I know it's not Charnwood, but could we look at that again?
Through you, Chair, if I can. I think it might be worth us meeting separately outside.
Because we could do this for about 3 hours.
This is sort of turned into a conversation between the two of us, really. But I'm quite happy to look at that. Obviously, as you said, that the tips aren't operated by the Borough Council, so it's not something that we can authorise. We can talk to Leicestershire about that, but that decision would be down to them.
Okay.
And it's not something we have a great deal of influence over, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, Emma, in I'm willing to try anything. I'm a Loughborough resident. My students are a really beneficial part of the community, but I am very, very aware that every year we have this problem, and the visible and the visceral impact is appalling. And it's not. If I didn't know anything about it, I would literally just think that students had done their rubbish on the street and left. And I just know that is not the case. I know that across Loughborough that happened in 3 locations. What my team and I do is we were on the street for 72 hours. We patrolled the entire town constantly, and we took pictures of the property. So to give you an example, there was one on Paget Street. I took a picture of the front of their property. I emailed every student in that property and said, this is how you've left your property. You have 48 hours to return to Loughborough and tidy this up immediately. If not, there are 2 consequences. If you're a finalist, you will be de-invited from graduation. And if you're a second year, you will have a discipline procedure. And the second consequence is your details will be passed to Charnwood Borough Council, and they will look at prosecuting you for fly tipping. So I was taking absolutely no prisoners. If we did identify people who hadn't disposed of their rubbish correctly, they were given 48 hours to do it. Now, out of those 3 properties, 2 all were apologetic. One of them literally sent me video evidence of the people ripping open all the bags. In fact, the landlord had pictures of their rubbish before that had happened, because the landlord got involved and he said, no, honestly, this is how we signed off the property, and it was all properly disposed of. And then she sent me a video of someone ripping open everything at 2 o'clock in the morning. So that one, they still anyway came back to Loughborough and cleared it up because they were really concerned. The other one paid a professional cleaning company to come and do it. And then the third one, they sent 3 of their housemates back to Loughborough from Essex overnight to come and clear up. I know Sandra's doing exactly what I did. I was very happy that they came back, cleared it up, and I think their house was neater when they left it than when they moved in the first place. So the message is out there. And I just want to show that I'm really willing to try absolutely anything, because the last thing I want is over the summer is for residents to think, oh my God, students don't care about it and they've just left the town an absolute disaster, because genuinely it was a problem we've not experienced before. So I'm really willing to do anything. Matthew, I'll send you a meeting invite where we have a chat and plan, because we're already starting to plan next year. So
thank you, Jenny. I think that's really positive, because one of the recommendations that I think the panel's discussed in relation to the university in this annual clear out before is suggesting that the university and our waste management department work more closely together to try and come up with a strategy that does work.
Really willing to do that. Yeah.
And it does sound like you've really worked at it this year, and I think councillors and residents have noticed that it was better this year than it has been previously. And actually residents in that area, because I drove down there, Paget Street particularly, and it looked awful because it was obviously after all this had happened. And I spoke to residents who confirmed what your students have just said about there having been people going through bags and it had actually been put out in an orderly manner, the way it had been asked to be done. So the message obviously had got over, and it's reassuring as well to know that when you've identified properties where there has been an issue, they have been given enforcement, and that has acted as a deterrent. And unfortunately, I think in the past there have been students that have been guilty of just sort of leaving everything and heading off. Hopefully, once word gets around about what the potential enforcement actions are, that will discourage people from doing it.
Yeah, not on my watch are they leaving the town on in that state at all. I'm a Loughborough resident. I feel we're a big, strong part of the community. I'm not tolerating it. And they realised that really quickly. One of them was even tweeting me pictures of their train journey to say, honestly, I'm coming back. We're coming back now. We're really sorry. We didn't realise. So the message got out really quickly, and there wasn't one person that left it in a mess that just said, no, I'm not doing it. Because if they're a third year, I can de-invite them from the graduation ceremony, and if they're a second year, I can fine them, and that money goes to the hardship fund. So it's but there wasn't one case where it didn't get cleaned up.
Okay, that's good to hear. Councillor Harper Davies put a comment in the chat box earlier when we were discussing the different items that you collected, and it sounds like you did collect a vast range of different items this year. Her comment was about having a collection point, I think in relation to the air ambulance bags, to avoid them being ripped open on the street.
It's literally what we discussed in the street while I was almost crying in Leopold Street on the Vice-Chancellor's wife. We've got 7 more that have gone in this year for British Heart Foundation and air ambulance. What we've looked at next year is either talking to Matt about if we can have the permits to go to the rubbish and the recycling are 2 very different things. Obviously, rubbish needs to be put in. We hate landfill, but sometimes that's going to happen. But anything that we need a bigger collection method, basically, and Sainsbury's Carpet, yeah, possibly. So the location of the banks is quite tricky. And what my ideal one would be to get it on the car park in Store Road, because that's exactly where my team was stationed and collecting stuff. I know there's problems with the occupant. There's a new tenant going in there, and it's not easy. But yeah, I'm all ears. We have put 10 more clothes banks in places this year. I'm always willing and able to put them in anywhere we can. And as of 3 weeks ago, I've now got a permanent room on campus, which was, you wouldn't believe how hard that was to do. I've now got a permanent room on campus where I collect things continually from anybody, and once a month I'm going to invite local charities to come and pick stuff up once it's been sorted. So for me, this is a long-term thing. It's not just in the summer. It's not just there. We're going to do it all year. I'm going to do a Christmas one, an Easter one, because students have lots of stuff that can be recycled and reused. So more sites, more collections, more charity donations is the way we're going. So,
okay, that sounds really positive. Councillor Harper Davies has added a suggestion about Sainsbury's car park and whether that might be.
I think we've tried, and I think they said no. But Councillor, maybe you could use your community spirit. If anybody's willing to get on my campaign trail and help me, I'm literally, please help.
Okay, I had a question about the range of items you were collecting and how you were collecting those. Do you have a single donation point at the university that the students have to bring things to?
The short answer currently is literally the boot of my car. And because I'm a complete hippie, I can't bear to give any dirty clothes to any charity. So if you ask my very annoyed husband, it also gets washed in my house and folded and used that way. I need a more permanent solution. So I've got a permanent room at the university. We need more of an operation. We've got the new LSU action person who's literally just hit the ground this week, 2 days ago. So I've got a meeting with them next week. I want a big operation. I want this to be a permanent thing. I want donating to charities to become a habit, not an extra thing. And if they, when everyone buys their new funky coats at September, then it's automatic of I'll give the other one to the university. I want to have a monthly kind of event where all the local charities come and pick up what they need, because different charities need different stuff. Refugees need coats, schools need sports equipment, which we seem to have plenty of. We're working with the campus as well, so that we're all doing the same thing, because they have an on-campus collection as well. So I'm literally all ears. If anyone's got a suggestion, I'm happy to do like another meeting outside of this one to say, I just need community help. I emailed everybody to say, please come and help us on the street to help. We literally had a brand new wheelie bin delivered to me by the council, and we had a team of us walking up and down the road, putting items into a new wheelie bin, which went in all my team's cars and was distributed to charity that way. I would love some councillor help on that. I'd love some local people help on that. I'd want it to be a massive operation. So okay. I'm ambitious, I just need the logistics.
Yeah, I'm sure there are lots of us that will be happy to help. I was just thinking about what you said before about one of the landlords who owns a lot of properties in the Granville Street area having put his own bins out with labels on saying what could go in. Because I've been a student and I know what it's like when you reach the end of term or the end of your course and you're in a hurry to pack up and go home, and you don't necessarily have time to go back onto the campus with a bag full of donations to drop in various different.
No, we literally pick them up, and I will go to them, because students, God love them, are quite lazy sometimes. So but I would rather go to them to pick it up than it didn't get picked up. So the landlords will collect stuff, my team will collect stuff, Action will collect stuff. We will go to them and pick it up, and I just need a bigger car.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it might be an idea to have some sort of dedicated collection boxes that we can sort of roll out to different streets.
Yeah, the problem is you have to kind of monitor a bit, because anything that looks like something that you can put something in, you never know quite what people are going to put in. I don't think I need to spell it out any more than that. So that's why I need it monitored with a person attached to say, yes, you can put that in here, or no, thank you, we don't quite want that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's always the risk that Matt sort of alluded to before, that there's some that have already gone and left stuff in the house, or some that aren't ready to go or aren't in, or what have you. But I guess that's just the look of
timing's crucial, and when it goes wrong, it's really not great. But I'm quite happy to. The problem for my team is as well is it's not my main part of my job. Is that reducing ASB is the main part of my job. So, and in June that's really busy. So I don't want to overcommit to things I can't deliver. But I really think this is a priority. I think sustainability and recycling and reducing mess on streets needs to be backed up by all the partners involved. So, you know, welcoming any help from Matt and his team, and we need a real multi-agency push on this.
I thought there was a sustainability team at the university. Are they not involved in this?
They are, and they've got a new person who's meeting up on Monday, but they are mainly campus focused. But with the new vice chancellor coming in, we're expanding that. But it's trying to get it all sorted really quickly. So yes, there is a sustainability team, and they're very strong. But until recently, they didn't have a remit about off-campus students.
Okay.
So we need to, when it comes to logistics of things like bin lorries and rubbish and prosecutions, it needs to be the statutory authority.
Okay. When we had a representative from Serco here at a previous meeting presenting data on the bin rounds and contamination on different rounds and things, it was highlighted that there were some rounds where there was more contamination in bins than others, and one of those rounds, I can't remember which one it was, Matt, perhaps you can, was one of the sort of heavily student populated areas.
Yeah, I looked at that data, and my team are aware of which streets it are, and we literally put people on the streets to go and do knocking on doors and reminding people. It's a constant battle to get people educated. They come from all over the world. And in a normal household, you have a mum, usually, excuse me for being sexist, who is in charge, you know, telling people don't put that in that bin. When you've got a household with 15 individuals in it, it's so difficult to manage and get the education and get the responsibility and get that all to match on the right day that's bin day.
When you were saying before about it all being about education, and that started really early this year, what did that education push consist of? Were they given leaflets or
door knocking? So it's literally, I need to transfer to Zoom because I've got to go to a group. Actually, I'm really sorry. I know this looks I've got a child waiting to be picked up. I can send you examples of what we did. It was social media, and I didn't want the irony of delivering a leaflet to people's houses about recycling and littering. Because if you go to a student house, you wade through a foot of pizza, leaflets. I didn't want to add to that.
Yeah, I understand that, but I wonder with students coming from a number of different countries where they have different rules and different languages, whether going back to the sort of tried and tested bin sticker with pictures of what goes in the bin might be an option. Does anybody else have any points that they want to make to Jenny? Because if not, actually, we might be able to let her go and do her parenting. It doesn't look like we do. So, Jenny, you're on mute at the moment.
I can send you some examples of the publicity we did with the students of the social media, and we did do some leafleting. Nikki Gibson did some leafleting, but as I say, I really worry about producing resources that are going to be wasted, and I want resources to be effective. But it's just communication. What we need to do is show students that this is the norm, and that it's not a request; it's an expectation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's been really helpful. Thank you, Jenny. I don't think anybody else has any comments or questions, so thank you for coming, and we'll let you go and do what you need to do.
Thank you. But if anybody wants to contact me at all, I'm really, really willing.
All right, well, I think Matt will be in touch to set something up with you about scheduling of the clear outs going forward. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so to sum up then, I think, Matt, you're going to arrange to speak to Jenny about scheduling the pickups next year to see if bringing it forward a little bit makes any difference. In terms of other recommendations to be recorded at this stage, does anybody else have any suggestions to make that haven't already been made? No? Okay. Okay, in that case, then we can move on to item 7 on the agenda.
Sorry, Chair, just
Sorry.
a general thing there. I think Jenny was maybe quite critical, really, of the efforts that have been made. I think there were some issues before the collections happened, obviously, with people going through bags and searching for items that they wanted that had been put out for recycling. But I think on the whole, the student waste collection has gone reasonably well this year, and it's certainly a big improvement on the last 2 years. So I'm hoping that we can refine things a little bit more and make further improvements next year and going into the future.
Yeah, obviously Jenny's focused on the work her and her team did around education and around the fact that the students did do, on the whole, what they were asked to do, and those that were told that they hadn't done what they'd been asked to do remedied it as soon as possible. The other aspect of it was, which hasn't been discussed, and I was speaking to one of your team earlier about this, Matt, was about the bulky waste items, which is more the landlord's responsibility than the students themselves. And I think we all noted that there was a vast reduction in the number of bulky waste items that were left out this year. And I understand that some of your team actually spoke to as many of the landlords as possible before the clear out to make it clear to them that Charnwood wouldn't be collecting those items this year as part of the cleanup. And if they needed to dispose of those, then they needed to arrange bulky waste collections separately, and any items that were left out and hadn't had arrangements made for their collection would incur enforcement action. So that's the other side of it, and that seems to have worked fairly well as well this year. So hopefully that's something that going forward landlords will understand as well as the norm, rather than leaving things out and expecting them to be taken. Okay, so item 7 then.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. Just before you move on to item 7, there's just a couple of other items as part of this consideration. You've got some information from council tenants who responded on.
Apologies, Laura, you're
that's
right.
Okay. On page 7 to 8 of the agenda, and then also I think Matt's got some data also to present for you. So
yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, we have on pages 7 and 8 of the agenda. Matt contacted tenants that are involved with the Housing Management Advisory Board on behalf of the panel to ask them if they had any input about waste collection in their areas. So Matt, would you like to introduce those responses and we can look at them?
So I certainly can, Chair, although I can't take the credit for asking for the responses. I think it was Laura that did it actually. So thank you, a big thank you to Laura for that, really. Response 1 was around taking soft plastic bags, and they have a soft plastic bag deposit at Tesco, and would we consider doing that? So that was something that we can look at.
Are soft plastic bags not one of the items that can go in our recycling bins?
They are. So I think that's more of an education item. It hasn't always been the case. No. And as the items that we can take change, the awareness doesn't necessarily change with it. Unfortunately, I think that's an education piece. But yeah, we can look at that.
It would be good to go back to the tenant that kindly did that comment and let them know that, and perhaps they can share that information with some of their neighbours.
We could, and we can look at some social media as well on that, Chair. That'd be quite inexpensive, so we could go back to the individuals that raised it. I think response to that we had was a lot around the ship shed incinerator that's being built at the moment. I understand it's due to be open next summer. And whether that will benefit us. And yeah, all I can say around that really is that incinerator received planning permission some time ago from the Secretary of State. It went to appeal, and it's a commercial operation. I'm not sure whose waste is going to be taken to that plant at the moment, and whether those contracts have been let. Our arrangements are, as the Waste Collection Authority, that we have to take our waste and recycling to the places that the County Council designate for us. So I'm not sure whether they're planning to use that facility or not, is the honest answer. Really just to add that our non-recyclable waste is incinerated at the moment, but it's incinerated out of the borough in either Coventry or Stoke-on-Trent. So I'm not sure, I haven't picked anything else out of there on recycling specifically, but again, we could go back to that particular tenant on that one.
Okay.
Response 3, could we have laminated pictures of recyclable items stuck on lids of green wheelie bins? We can. There's quite a lot of items that we can recycle. There's a long list actually, so get it in a pictorial format can be quite difficult because the images can be quite small. We actually did the reverse of this a few years ago, where we stuck pictures on the bins of items that we didn't want that were frequently put in recycling bins. I know it's quite a negative message. I think it said no food waste, no nappies, and no textiles. The one that we put on, but I think it's something that we can consider. You can actually get the bins embossed with items that you can put in, or a list. Obviously, lists have language barriers, whereas pictures don't. But obviously, that embossing on the bin is permanent, and if the items that we can recycle changes, you can't easily change that. Whereas stickers, you can put a sticker over the top or take them off. So it's something that we could look at.
Yeah, didn't we have stickers in the past? I'm sure we did.
I think we probably have. I think we have had stickers of what does go in the bin. I think the most recent thing that we did was, please don't put these items in the recycling. But we could try the reverse again. The yes, please, we'll take these is probably a more positive message for us to give out.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any points to raise on those responses? No? Okay then, Matt, would you mind sharing the collection round data with us then that you've managed to obtain?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will share that now, if you bear with me for a moment. Can you see that on the screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it big enough? Can you read the figures there? Okay. So I'm going to give a bit of a health warning about this data. So this is a 2-week sample of waste and recycling that was taken for 2 weeks, commencing on the 1st of March this year. And the way it's being conducted is each vehicle has a round number and then a day. So you'll have round 1, and then that vehicle does Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday 1 week, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday the next week. So the round is attributed to a vehicle registration number. There are occasions when a vehicle goes off the road, so it might need servicing or an MOT, or it may break down, and other rounds have to infill for that vehicle, so that can change the tonnages slightly here. And as a practice, our operations, the way it works is each round goes out, it has a list of streets to complete, and the rounds that finish first help the other rounds to get their work done. So the sort of the collective work isn't done until all the bins have been emptied. So there may be some chopping and changing there. So this data was quite useful, isn't 100% reliable, but I think it is a good indication of where our good recycling rounds are and aren't. It's just not absolutely scientifically accurate. Do people understand that? Have I explained that okay? Right, okay. So what you have in front of you for this for this particular fortnightly period is the top 5 performing rounds that we've got. And this is just dry recycling compared to residual waste. I haven't included garden waste because some areas have gardens and some don't, and that would skew the figures quite considerably. So this is just green bin waste compared to black bin waste within the borough. So I'll let you know what these rounds are, which addresses they are in a moment. So the top performing 5 was round 11, day 3, round 13, day 2, round 8, day 4, round 10, day 2, and round 12, day 2. So you can see that all of those 5 rounds recycled over 40% of their residual and recycling combined. So this isn't, it's slightly different to how we measure the target, because that includes green waste. So those rounds are recycling nearly half of their sort of combined residual and recycling waste. So at this point, I'm probably going to flip onto this sheet to let you know where they are. So that I think the top one was round 11, day 3. That was Birstall. So some of the addresses are Loughborough Road, Beachfield Avenue, Park Road, and other areas of Birstall. There's a long list there of 40 addresses. Excuse me, my dog's walked in with a lead and no owner. So you just bear with me while he's being collected by my daughter. Got a rogue dog running around. So there's 40 different addresses on that particular round on that day, and I can circulate this after the meeting so members can have a look. It's quite hard seeing it fresh like this. Unfortunately, I only completed this yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to circulate it in advance. And then the other one is Rothley, which was a high recycling round. The third one was Hamilton, Barkby, and areas of Syston. And then the fourth one, Anstey, Cropston, Newtown, Linford. And the last one was Mount Sorrel and areas of Rothley. I'm sure Councillor Harper Davis will be glad about that particular round there. So they're our top performing recycling rounds, really. And they're all doing very well, according to this little snapshot that we've taken. It is only for 2 weeks, but say it is useful. So the bottom 5 that we had data for, there were some days where we've got incomplete data. So that shows that the vehicle attributed to that round wasn't used at all on that day. So that's where the data's incomplete and we haven't been able to determine what we've collected. But the bottom 5 for ones that we've got data for were round 3, day 2, round 6, day 3, round 4, day 1, round 1, day 3, and round 4, day 2. And those areas are shown bear with me here. So so the first one, Ashby Road, Thorpe Hill, Loughborough, Laneshaw Avenue and Winterburn Way, some areas there, Cloudbridge Drive. And then the other one, the next one is Hastings Street, Granville Street, Burley Road, parts of Ashby Road, Curzon Street, Oxford Street, Station Street, and I think, and Derby Road. I think that corresponds with the information that Jim McGovern gave us from Serco. And then round 4, day 1 is Shepshed, Lovage Road, Morley Lane, Abbey Close, Moscow Lane, and other addresses there. And then round 1, day 3, Nottingham Road, Rendell Street, Clarence Street, Brush Drive, Meadow Lane, the area around there, Sidings Walk. And the last one, sorry, the last, no, that's that. The last one is Loughborough again, Schofield Road, Blackbrook Road, Grace Dew Road, George Street, Rosebery Street, Garendon Road, Garendon Green areas, Alan Moss Road there. So we can see that where the higher performers were sort of recycling nearly half of their waste, if you exclude the garden waste, this performance on one round was just over 10% really, which isn't great. And then anything up to, well, they didn't get towards 20% there really. So these are your lower performing recycling rounds really. And if we chose to do a targeted campaign, we could look to target those particular areas first, and we could repeat this exercise to see if we had any improvements or any indication of any improvements. As I say, the data isn't perfect, but I think for the purposes that we need it for, it's as good as we are able to get it. So I can circulate this spreadsheet. It's got 2 tabs to members of the panel, and then we can look at that. You can look at that in your own time and ask any questions that you may have. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Let me just have a look to see if anyone has their hand raised. I don't think anybody does. It's very interesting, the division between the top 10, the top 5 and the bottom 5, that the bottom 5 are, except one, all in Loughborough. And I think at least one of those is in the Golden Triangle area, which I think Jim McGovern already highlighted when he came to visit us at the last meeting. So I think that's something maybe to go back to Jenny with. But yeah, perhaps we can all have a look at those and think about them and any recommendations we might make for the next meeting. I think maybe some targeted education work on the bottom 5 particularly might be a good idea.
Yeah, I think that would be good, Chair. And obviously, if we choose a small, we could choose a number of rounds from those bottom 5, and we could take a snapshot in time, and then do a campaign and see what improvements that we get over time.
Yeah.
And then that generates a business case potentially to do things in other areas. If we can lift the standard from the bottom performing ones up, you can move on to the next poorly performing ones in turn, and then hopefully we can see some improvements over time.
Yeah. Councillor Forrest has her hand up.
Thank you, Chair, but I believe I think it was Councillor Howe had his hand up before me.
He did, but it's not there anymore. Councillor Howe, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I was thinking of it, but I thought it's better if I have a chance to look at the figures first. I'll have a look at them first.
Okay, thank you.
Because I couldn't quite follow the figures, but I think it would be easier if I'll leave it for the time being, and then I'll have a look at the figures and raise any questions then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Forrest.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry that a lot of the bottom 5 are in my ward because it's the student area. Oh no, I'm not taking responsibility for it. But I think what we have is Matt is absolutely right. It's a campaign, it's education. But the problem is each year you have to do a campaign and educating, because the tenants that you educated last year are not going to be the same tenants that you're faced with at the beginning of this year. So I do appreciate it's very difficult, and it sounds silly, but for some of these young people, this is the first time they've been householders. You know, dealing with the bins has been something that mum and dad have done, you know, not them. And you have to start with that basic premise that, you know, you have to put your rubbish out. Here in Charnwood, we've got a green bin. You know, this kind of rubbish goes in this bin. We've got a black bin. Residual rubbish goes in this. And I don't think one campaign really is enough. It's got to be a sort of an ongoing campaign, or an ongoing programme of education, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forrest. Okay, so to sum up then on this item, if all members could have a look at the data that Matt will circulate after the meeting, and then at the next meeting we can finalise any recommendations that we want to put forward related to this round data. Is that okay, Laura? Okay, thank you, Matt, for that. So at this point, I think we can move on to item 7, which is the completion of the scrutiny scope document and arrangements for the final panel meeting. So we need to have a look at whether all the tasks we set out at the beginning of this process have been completed. Laura, I think, circulated the scoping document with the agenda papers.
Yeah, it's on, I think it's on pages 9 to 11, it's set out. It indicates where things have been completed or whether they were due to be completed at this meeting. I think the outstanding task, as far as I can see, is the visit that you wanted to have to the case back, but everything else I think is probably about there.
Yeah, the other outstanding item is identifying barriers, and I think that's something we've been looking at throughout these meetings. Matt, have you made any progress with Case Pack in arranging this?
No, but not through the want of trying, Chair. I am pursuing it, and I think it's really valuable that we do attend, actually. So I will keep pursuing them. I have asked for some dates and not had a response, so I'll keep pushing that, and hopefully we can get that done in the near future.
Okay, that's fine. So in that case, I think we have made our way through all of the tasks that we had intended to. Has anybody else got any points they want to make on that, or anything they want to bring to the panel's attention? No? Okay. So in that case, we need to schedule a date for the final meeting where we will be agreeing the panel's recommendations and a report to be put forward to Cabinet. Is that correct?
I can look at another date for you, Chair, outside of the meeting and send it round to members of the panel. The way it would normally work now is obviously I'll do the minutes of this meeting and get them round to everybody, and then normally I draft a sort of a template type report that just includes all the information about when you met and who met and what you considered, and it includes all the minutes, which are quite detailed at the back of the report. What I'd aim to do is bring that to that next meeting when we've scheduled it, and before then circulate it round so people can put some ideas in for recommendations beforehand, because the idea would be to get to that final meeting with something that the panel are generally in agreement with, and then we can look at any final amendments, etc., and hopefully move to agree that final report that will then get submitted to Scrutiny Commission for them to have a look at.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Laura. So just to point out, that will be a physical meeting as well, because we will be making recommendations. So members of the panel will be expected to attend that meeting in person. Can I ask the members of the panel present if they are all happy with the above and to confirm that verbally, please? So can I start with Councillor Baldwin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy with the information that's been imparted.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Forrest?
Yes, Chair, I'm very happy with the way forward that we've planned out.
Thank you, Councillor Forrest. Councillor Howe?
Yes, I'm happy. As I'll have a look at that spreadsheet at my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Needham?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy with all of that.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy with that as well. So that means that Laura is going to look for a date for the final meeting and start putting a report together for us. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending this evening and for your contributions. And that, I think, draws the meeting to a close.